The News Day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. It's the end of the line for Beatrice Luigi Gomez's stint in Miss Universe 2021. Bea made it to the top 5 of the pageant and answered a tough question about mandating vaccine passports, but she failed to make it to the next round. The delegates that are still in the running for this year's Miss Universe include Miss South Africa, India, and Paraguay. What changes would you hope to see in the Miss Universe competition over the next 70 years? In celebration of the pageant's 70th year, this controversial question was asked to the Miss Universe candidates. Let's listen to their answers.
I was body shamed before competing for Miss Haiti Universe. And there's this stigma attached to pageantry that women have to be a certain weight, that they have to be a certain size. I would love to see that change.
It's not only about physical beauty anymore.
It's about the message that the women have to share to the world.
Our voice really can be magnified through this incredible platform that allows us to create change in such beautiful ways.
Pageantry is including everyone that would like to see a change in the universe and who would love to create a difference for the better.
Presidential aspirant and Senator Ping Lacson slams petitioners against the anti-terror law who are complaining about the recent Supreme Court ruling. The SC has declared 2 provisions of the law as unconstitutional, but upheld most provisions that the petitioners were fighting against. Petitioners initially considered it a victory, but many only considered it a partial win, while some are now eyeing to appeal the decision, again before the High Court. Lacson, who is also the principal author of the anti-terror law, questioned petitioners' mixed sentiments, telling them to make up their mind. He again defended the law, saying it's not meant to harass critics of the government, but to prevent terror acts like the Marawi siege.
Peace wins over terror, and we are very happy with the decision. No matter how they claim that they achieved partial victory, why are they whining? Why are they protesting? Why are they appealing? Kung nanalo sila. There's no partial victory to speak of in the first place. It is a total victory for peace.
Around 1,000 residents trooped to designated sites in their barangays to claim cash aid that they did not receive during the first 2 rounds of distribution. The crowds got so huge that minimum health standards were no longer observed. Arian Calumbiran with the details.
Long lines in a crowded space. These are what residents of Barangays 12 and 34 had to endure to receive cash aid or ayuda from the DSWD in Caloocan. These are residents under the city's wait list that have yet to get their ayuda under both rounds of the social amelioration program. Many were too excited to receive the cash aid in Barangay 12 that they trooped the basketball court way before their scheduled hours. Some started lining up for the ayuda by nighttime. It also appears as though residents have become complacent as many did not observe physical distancing rules.
Ang problema kasi kuya, dalawang barangay, kaso ang problema, ilan na nagpe-pay out? Dapat marami rin nagpe-pay out para hindi naiipon ng tao.
There was also a long line inside the basketball court as the DSWD had a long and slow process in releasing cash. The agency says they have to carefully verify papers of each beneficiary. But because of the heat and the huge number of people in the area, some residents who lined up for their ayuda suffered headaches and ended up exhausted and starving.
Wala, hindi na po kasi tama yung nangyayari.
Ano bang di tama sa nangyayari?
Kanina pa kami dito, hindi pa rin umuusad yung pila namin.
Ano ba sinabi schedule?
Alauna po. Eh syempre kami, advance kami. Ahaba ang pila ng sobrang haba.
Gloria Cayano even brought her 80-year-old father to the site to make sure that their household will receive a 16,000 peso cash aid. But Cayano admits she is also afraid that her father will catch the coronavirus in the crowded area.
Pag madaming hinihingi na requirements, pabalik-balik ako.
Barangay personnel who were in charge of fixing the lines had to also double their patience.
Wala akong problema. Yung sila may problema. Siksik sila ng siksik. Sa pila, nag-uunahan. Pangina pa kami dito. Mamalat na kasigaw eh.
There are up to to 1,000 beneficiaries listed in the 2 barangays. Residents scheduled to claim their ayuda are reminded to bring their IDs and documents. They are also advised to immediately head home after receiving their cash aid to avoid falling prey to robbers. Arian Kalumbiran, We Are One News.
The OCTA Research Group reports that Metro Manila is now under the very low-risk category for COVID-19. OCTA's Professor Guido David notes that NCR averaged just 91 cases over the past 6 days. The expert notes that the reproduction number in the capital region is now very low at 0.39, and the positivity rate has dropped to 0.9%. Breaking down the figures, some areas in NCR are also declared very low risk, and these are Pateros, Caloocan, Las Piñas, Mandaluyong, Parañaque, Marikina, Pasig, Navotas, Valenzuela, San Juan, Manila, Pasay, and Taguig. Other areas remain at low-risk category. The vaccine expert panel is still studying the health department's proposal to allow people to receive booster shots 3 months after getting their second dose. In an interview with Radyo 5, vaccine expert panel member Jean Solante explained that the 6-month interval between the second and third shots is still recommended. Although Solante clarified that some data showed antibodies could drop as early as 3 months after getting vaccinated. Solante also said that it is possible that they would roll out booster shots on a regular basis to protect the public against COVID-19.
Ang tingin ko malamang dahil napaka-diverse nitong virus na to na even after 6 months or before 6 months, humihina ang antibody sa mga bakuna. And I think kung magiging ganito ang magiging cycle, darating talaga sa punto na mayroon tayong regular na bakuna para lang ma-maintain natin ang protection. Hindi pa natin pinag-usapan dito, Ted, yung variant, yung mga tinatawag na variant-specific na bakuna kasi mas medyo may mataas ang protection doon against the Omicron variant or even sa Delta.
The Delta variant is reaching its peak level as the Omicron variant emerges. That's according to Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health professor Andrew Pekosh. The details in this report.
I want to talk about this Omicron variant, and I think this is a really important conversation. If it turns out to be much, much milder, but far more contagious, how do we treat that from a policy perspective? From your standpoint, sir, how do we make that change?
It all comes down to hospitalization rates and severe disease rates. There's preliminary data now suggesting that a boost will probably give you a really good immune response that protects against Omicron. And therefore, if that holds true, then the current strategy of getting people boosted should be able to limit our severe disease cases and allow us to keep going without any major changes in in our public health intervention policies. But, we're far away from that because we're certainly dealing right now with a Delta surge that's really approaching peak levels that we've ever seen here in the U.S. And so we're really in a bit of a pickle here in terms of trying to figure out how to deal with the current Delta as well as prepare for a potential Omicron.
There are a lot of issues embedded in there. I want to tease out one idea of quarantining if you're exposed, because that's been highly disruptive, especially for kids who've gone back to school or people going to the workplace. And this is a big reason why people are worried about bringing people back to the offices. How transmissible is somebody who has been inoculated 3 times, who let's say gets a breakthrough infection or even twice? Are they as infectious as an unvaccinated individual?
The data suggests that you still will be more likely to not transmit the virus. There are certainly some cases out in the literature right now where if someone who's been vaccinated gets a strong infection and has a lot of virus, they can transmit. But for most people, vaccination will reduce the transmission of both Delta and we assume now for Omicron to other individuals. So vaccination still is the route to sort of turn the curve here. I think the thing we really have to think about right now, particularly when it comes to Omicron, is we've seen data that's mostly focused on vaccinated people and individuals who are relatively healthy. We haven't seen cases of Omicron in vulnerable populations. populations, the elderly, immunocompromised, people on cancer therapies. It's what Omicron does in those populations that don't have the protection induced by the vaccine that is going to be really important to judge, because if those vulnerable parts of the population are even more sensitive to severe disease with Omicron, then we really have to rethink some of our public health approaches.
But Andy, from a public health perspective, just going back to vaccinated individuals, if they are not that contagious, they don't spread the virus, why are they being tested 5, 6, 7 times to travel in any way, shape, or form? Why is there still this surveillance and possible quarantining of them if they get exposed and if they get a breakthrough infection?
It goes down to the layered approach to limit transmission and limit spread of the virus. So we never want to rely on one thing, and oftentimes the testing combined with vaccination status is used as at least 2 ways to make sure that we're catching 90+% of people who are potentially infectious. And so that's really the point here when it comes to that strategy. I will say, though, that there are better strategies to do the testing rather than our nasal swab PCRs. Antigen testing, at-home testing, these are things that we in the U.S. in particular haven't taken advantage of that could make this whole process of testing and being certain that you can go back to work, back to traveling, much more easier.
Well, obviously in the U.S. we do have the advantage that we can get access to that testing if we try hard enough. We also have ample access to vaccinations and booster shots, whereas a lot of the world doesn't even have a large portion of their population given their initial doses yet. And the WHO is saying, hold the conversation on boosters. We need to focus on getting more of the world vaccinated before we have that conversation. Do you think we're misaligning our priorities?
Yeah, it's important to note that a global pandemic requires a global response. And certainly getting more vaccine to other countries has to be a high priority. I realize that there are always interests in terms of protecting our own population to the greatest degree possible. But at the end of the day, Omicron is showing us yet again what we can expect from SARS-CoV-2 if we don't get even better at vaccinating the world. The doses that have been given so far to Africa are a great first step, but if you think about the population of Africa and the doses that have been promised, we're still nowhere close to being able to move on that one continent to a level of protection in the population that would help us really reduce the amount of variants that are emerging.
Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. A brewing typhoon is set to enter the Philippine area of responsibility until tomorrow and is forecast to make landfall later this week. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Lacson claims the health department has dropped the ball once again, this time on the supply of syringes used for COVID-19 vaccinations. And there's still no Omicron variant in the country, but the DOH detects another variant from a South African traveler. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us later at 2 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.